everybody doing? Mr. Warren Hayes here, back once again to talk about the G1 Climax 32. 2 more nights of action in the can, nights 7 and 8. So that means it's my turn to come around and recap it. Bit of reviews right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. Thank you very much for joining me today. Of course, if you're listening on YouTube right now, subscribe. I mean, that way you won't miss any of my G1 coverage, but not just that, all the other stuff I do here as well. Give a like. That stuff always helps out the channel quite a bit. And if you're listening to this on your podcast apps, well, listen, 5-star reviews on Apple, always appreciated. 5-star ratings on Spotify, which is a thing now, also very appreciated. Or any kind of love that you can show if you're listening on Stitcher or whatnot, those just little things that help the podcast grow. Just tiny little things like that. Because, I like the G1. I hope you guys like the G1. And, maybe you're just tuning in to me because you're like, the G1. Look, the G1 is an investment, right? The G1 is an investment of time, of, mind space. And maybe you're just like popping in to listen to me talk about it and you're like, okay, well, I feel like I'm caught up and whatnot. And maybe you'll go watch my match recommendations and whatnot. But as it stands, it's like, I understand if you wanna hang around here and just listen to my stuff, that's fine too. And you know what? It's kind of flattering. and I'll tell you, if anything, if this is the path that you've decided to take, just listening to my recaps and then, well, good for you because, I think that the past 2 nights, I think it's a wise choice is what I'm saying. Because I think the past 2 nights of the G1 can be best defined as mid, to coin maybe a bit of an overused term, but I think it's really the best way to describe it. I'd say there was 1, maybe 2 matches that stand out over the 8 block matches that we got. But I think the rest is, competent, solid, world-class wrestling. Don't get me wrong. 1 match aside, maybe. There's an exception. But, nothing really connects. It's good. Like, you look at it. You watch the matches and you're like, this is good pro wrestling. This is what I like. In my case, right? But I'm not getting that emotional investment. I'm not getting the fire. There's, are we, I was wondering, because it sometimes happens, right, that there's a lull midway through the G1, at least in the past couple of editions. There's a lull midway in the G1 where everyone sort of, is sort of, dials it back a little bit. And in past years, well, I'd be like, well, it's a hell of a grueling schedule that they're going through. So maybe, halfway through, they're like, I can understand the guys where like, look, we're going to save our energies for the big final matches. We're going to, protect our bodies, let's put it that way, a little more on that front. So I can understand. But now, in the way this is set up with the 4 blocks, with the 17, 18 nights of G1 action and with the long breaks of time that a lot of the guys are benefiting from between some of the matches, I don't understand why there'd be a lull here. But, like I said, nights 7 and 8 are mid. If anything, if you were to put a gun to my head, I'd tell you, well, night 7 is a better night of G1 action than night 8 was. But overall, neither night turns into really compelling viewing. Let me show you what I mean. Let's get into the card and start breaking it down. We're on July 27, night 7. We were still at Hurricane. Korakuen Hall. Korakuen. All right, that means I need a sip. Korakuen Hall, Night 7, July 27. Opened up with Will Ospreay defeating Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Beam. And of course, Will Ospreay is going to get a good match out of the sack of shit, which is Yujiro. And here's something. This is what I mean here, right? When I'm talking about these long extended, we have not seen Will Ospreay since night 1. Now I understand he's in the opening match of the 4 block matches. He's against Yujiro. He's not going to go all out. Like, there's no reason for him to put on an extraordinary match with Yujiro, who is, destined to be the lower mid-carder that he is. But so, it was a decent match. It was fun. And Yujiro was into it. And oh, by the way, Yujiro and Peter, if you were following the shenanigans from previous nights where Peter left with El Fantasmo, well, apparently she's reconciled. Yujiro came out dejected and alone, but then Peter came back out. And I'm like, if Yujiro is a pimp, he's a very bad pimp because he's only got this. He only has one. He only has Peter. He only has the one. He has no one else on his offer. He comes out alone and he's dejected. Maybe this pimp thing ain't working out for him either, is my point. What a weird. It's weird to have of course I'm being facetious here, but because it's so strange to have a pimp gimmick in 2022. And then the pimp coming out without his lady of the night and doesn't have a backup plan and he feels sad. Anyway. I'm completely overanalyzing this bullshit. But Yujiro knocks Will Ospreay down to begin with. Ospreay comes back with a flying forearm and a drop kick. They go on the floor. Yujiro bites Ospreay and hits a slop drop as well. We get back in the ring with some forearms and a kick. Ospreay hits a rolling kick, does a great reversal. Goes for the standing shooting star press, but Yujiro puts his knees up, hits the fisherman's buster. Ospreay with an enziguri. An Oz cutter is blocked into the Olympic slam. Yujiro pushes Ospreay off the top turnbuckle. He tries for a super fisherman's buster, but Ospreay gets the upper hand, hits a flying forearm off the top. Springboard 450 by Ospreay, which was fantastic. Yujiro goes for a low blow, but Ospreay fights back over it. Yujiro hits a satellite DDT. Just a shock. Woke everyone up. Everyone whoa. Even commentary popped out of their seats, showing as Yujiro did something exciting. He goes for pimp juice. Ospreay kicks out. Ospreay, though, hits the hook kick. Goes for the Oz cutter. It's blocked. Yujiro goes for big juice. It's blocked. Ospreay hits a pop-up uppercut. Hidden blade. That's all she wrote. 2 more points for Ospreay. Just solid work. And this will likely, I will predict that this will likely be Yujiro's best match of the tournament. Because of course, he's fighting Will Ospreay, and Ospreay is going to drag something good out of him, and he did. Then we move on to Block A action, where Bad Luck Fale defeated Toru Yano, and this stunk. And I'm not even going to do a walkthrough of this. In fact, what I'm going to do instead is try to I've been racking my brain trying to understand why I'm not enjoying Toru Yano matches as much. Because I enjoy Yano quite a bit for what he does as a comedy act. And I do think that he's refreshing in the G1 context. But I'm wondering why this year, and even last year, why I wasn't as into the Yano shenanigans, right? There's a couple of times where I pop, but I feel, is it because they're contrived now? Is it because we expect it? Is it because we've seen his entire bag of tricks maybe at this point? I don't know. Well, I say I don't know. I think I figured it out. Because what Yano would provide is just a change of pace, maybe a little cool down from top to bottom exciting matches from the G1, right? Just stuff where you're going, whoa, all the time, right? And Yano comes in, he does his nonsense, and it's funny, and it's just, just a palate cleanse. Then you move on to some more excellent matches. But the G1, especially these 2 nights here, and a couple of nights previous to this as well, you have your singular matches where you go, okay, this is great, but we're not hitting the levels of top tier G1 action that we're used to. We're really not. This isn't as much as I like the G1, love the G1, and I still think, tournament wrestling, so on and so forth, I love it. And I do think it's the standard. I think as far as the standard goes, it's not delivering as it used to in past occasions. And I talked about it on the last recap as well. I've changed my perception. I've switched around my perception on people like Yujiro and Bad Luck Fale being put in this tournament where you're like, they're here to eat pins, so on and so forth. But I've changed my perspective on this where I'm like, well, who cares if these guys are in here? They're here to eat pins anyway. It doesn't matter. It's not something I should lean into anymore because they're dragging down this tournament. Whereas you have guys, and we're going to talk about it in a second, like Henare again tonight, who is, in his first G1. And he's a young guy, and he's here to eat pins, but he's got something to prove, and he's been so goddamn solid throughout the tournament so far. There's no room, there's no reason for a Bad Luck Fale anymore, who meanders around the ring and sweats. And that's all he does. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely appreciate the contributions that Fale has brought to the past, but this is not the Bad Luck Fale of 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't know who this guy is. Yujiro doesn't give a shit. He knows his spot. He knows he knows that he's been earmarked into this, lower mid-card spot. So he's like, who cares if I have a good G1? It doesn't matter. It's not going to change for him. But guys like Henare and Dave Finlay, they're coming in strong. Chase Owens was the story last year, if you ask me. Haven't seen much of Chase so far as opposed to the other guys, so I'm excited to see. But he was a guy who came in very, very strong last year as well. Tonga as well. So there's really no point in putting these people into this tournament anymore. And it drags it down. And I think it affects the work. Probably affects the general attitude backstage as well to a degree. But the G1 needs to bring back its bite. Needs to bring back its this excitement that you have every single night to come back and just where you're like every night is great or better than the last one and people are talking about it incessantly online. This is where we're at right now. And so when I see something like Bad Luck Fale and Toru Yano, and I get nervous about it. I get, I anticipate it poorly to be poor. And when I watch it, I'm like, this is shit. Because not even Yano's lighthearted contributions to the tournament are making this any better. Because the tournament is so average right now. I think compare and contrast to better years, 2017, 2018. You get Yano in here doing goofy shit. You're like, oh, this is great. Anyway, an highly, highly skippable match. Terrible, actually. And then in the main event, Hiroki Goto defeated Aaron Henare. No, excuse me, this wasn't the main event. I feel like I went through all three. No, this is the third match of the night. But it was my match of the night, though, where Goto defeated Henare. Great back and forth between the two with big strength attempts. They're really putting over the fact that Henare can eat a lot of punishment, and he can dish it out, but he can also eat it. And putting him in a match with Hiroki Goto will highlight that, because Goto, look, despite the fact that, his ceiling has been struck and, we're not going to reach the heights, any higher heights than what we've already had with Goto, he is absolutely a fantastic world-class wrestler. When put in these types of situations, will do what needs to be done to put the other guy over, to make him look like $1 million. And because he has that type of offense that will complement what they're trying to do with Henare here. Just fantastic stuff. Henare hits a shoulder block, Goto a hip toss, Aaron Henare gets whipped into the guardrail, but he bounces back and lariats Goto down. Of course, all of this happening on the floor. Goto fights back, hits a running bulldog, a kick by Goto, but Henare answers with an even harder kick, which was pretty dope. Diving senton by Aaron Henare as well. Goto avoids the full Nelson, hits the Ushigoroshi. Henare on his end avoids the GTR, but eats a reverse GTR and a lariat. He also comes back, hits a berserker bomb. They trade some forearms, some open palms on Henare by Goto, and Henare's just taking them. It's just amazing stuff. He just lights all the way up. He smacks the shit out of Goto. Like, just whomp. He goes for a kick, catches the knee. He being Henare, he goes for a kick. Goto catches the knee. And as he's holding the knee, Henare lifts a knee strike. Just great stuff. Fantastic stuff. Hits the rampage. Goto avoids the full Nelson and a Streets of Rage, but eats a beautiful roundhouse kick. Goto hits the GTW though, and then follows up with the GTR for the win. Goto gets another win. He's at 4 points. Are we back to saying the G in G1 stands for Goto? Is this what we're doing now? Are we back to are we full circling on this? Good match. I thought this was a very, 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 very good match. I enjoyed it a great deal. Match of the night, unquestionably. And another very good match for the main event. Tomohiro Ishii defeated Tonga. And look, and I think this is the definition of what I was telling about in my preamble to the whole recap review here right now. Look, I thought this match was a good pro wrestling match. I thought it was solidly worked, but there was something here that wasn't clicking for me. There was, and it's weird because you have two guys who are typically capable of drawing me in because of their energy, because of their explosiveness, because of their strength, because of their skill and talent. You know, Ishii, Tonga should be able to get a rise out of me, but I was just like sitting back, watching it, enjoying it, and saying, this is very competent. I see what they're doing. This is very good. But I didn't feel invested. I mean, look, they went hard on each other with strikes, and Ishii no selling early on in the match. He shoves a drop kick away, which I love. I love it when people do that. When there's a drop kick and they don't move, they just like shrug it away. I love that shit. It's such a good spot. Suplex by Tonga and a stinger splash, a spinning back suplex as well. Ishii with combo strikes in the corner, running shoulder tackle and a side suplex. Tonga hits a drop kick, followed by a running pounce and a superplex by Tomohiro Ishii. Powerbomb into a Tongan twist by Tonga. Ishii avoids a splash, hits a powerbomb. No, he doesn't hit it. Sorry about that. It's a Rana that gets reversed, that Tonga uses to reverse out of that powerbomb. It was really cool. Ishii is selling in this match that he's damaged. You know, he seems to be taking more time recuperating, getting back on his feet. He goes for the brain buster, but it's avoided and reversed into a gun stun, which in turn is reversed into some back and forth, with ends with Tonga hitting Veleno. There's a brain buster and TKO by Tonga, but the vertical drop brain buster by Tomohiro Ishii gets the job done. 2 points for him, his first 2 points of the tournament. So it's we're a fun main event. I thought Goto versus Henare was better. And like I said, whatever was missing in this match between Ishii and Tonga, just it brought it down for me. But like I said, and you heard it in my voice as I'm going through the moves, as I'm breaking down the match, I'm like, this is pretty good. But for some reason, I couldn't dive harder into it. It didn't drag me in, which is so weird because of the nature of this match. The nature of the people in this match is what I mean. It's strange. So that was night 7. Like I said, I think it's overall skippable. I think Goto and Henare is a good one. Can watch the main event too. Like it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's nothing that I'm like absolutely recommended go watch. And you see, that's the thing. And like I said, you have a guy like Aaron Henare, you have a guy like Tonga who have stuff to prove here. Tonga, he's in the midst of his singles babyface push. He's got something to prove, so he's working hard. You have Aaron Henare, who is in this tournament to eat pins. He's not going to win, but he's working so hard. Every match that Aaron Henare has had to this point has just been extremely well worked. His match with Tanahashi was fantastic. His match with Zack Sabre Jr. was fantastic. This was very good too with Goto. Like, so far he's been consistent and bringing out great matches out of everyone. Let's move on to night 8, which just happened today as I just finished recording. I started recording this just as I finished catching up here. July 30th, the Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium in Nagoya. Started off with Shingo Takagi. David Finlay defeating Shingo Takagi is what I should say here, in a bit of a second surprise win in a row for our boy Dave here, if you ask me. Wasn't expecting him to defeat Juice Robinson. Was not expecting him to defeat former world champion Shingo Takagi here, my boy. Starts fast with shoulder blocks and arm drags, a drop kick by Finlay, a DDT on the floor by Shingo, and gets back in the ring, hits another DDT. Finlay hits a flying elbow and a pescado. We get back in the ring and there's a springboard crossbody. Then he lands by Finlay and he lands a cravat neck breaker and a blue thunder bomb. Shingo knocks him down with a lariat, does an elbow drop, a power bomb. Finlay kicks out but gets rolled right into a crossface. A little later, Finlay hits a Uranagi backbreaker. We get a superplex. Acid drop attempt is avoided by Shingo, who nails Finlay with a lariat. Finlay then rolls out of a Made in Japan into a great cover attempt, which was very smooth, very well done. Finlay then hits a stunner and an acid drop. Shingo counters with a Noshigami and a pumping bomber, hits the Made in Japan. Finlay kicks out, but eventually we get another stunner by Finlay, and Shingo groggily walks into a roll-up for the win. Even Shingo is surprised that he was able to get, sneak into here. So yeah, another surprise win by Dave Finlay in a fun little opener. Opener for the block action, right? Because there's the whole undercard, but we're focusing on these recaps here. We're focusing on the tournament matches. So this one caught me a little bit by surprise, and I'm here for it. And look, I'm a Shingo fan. I love Shingo. I will defend him to the ends of the earth, or something like that. But he's really a wrestler that I will always make a case for. I think he's one of the. I really think he's one of the top 5 wrestlers in the world. But New Japan's not doing anything with him right now. He's not in the midst of a push. He's not in contention for any titles. I think this is a good use of him in this tournament so far. Even Okada had a dark period, right? With the balloons and the red hair. That's fine. And Finlay continues a fun streak, 2 fun consecutive matches from Dave Finlay. And in fact, Finlay his last match with Juice, I'd say even more than fun. I think it was a great match. This one, nice entry here with a lot of fire, a lot of energy, and I dig it. I dig what he's doing here, and continues to further my point that we don't need the Fales and the Yujiros here anymore. Get some guys who are hungry. Get some guys who have something to prove. Get some guys who are in the G1 who've been maybe clamoring for years to be in the G1. Get them in here. The G1 is also supposed to be a place where you're supposed to be able to have a showcase, to shine, to get yourself over. I think Finlay's doing a good job work wise. He's been great so far. Good little match. Fun little match. Block A action next, where JONAH defeated Filthy Tom Lawlor. I don't know, man. This wasn't it. And I'm waiting for the big Tom Lawlor match. I mean, this is only his second. He started late in the tournament. This is only his second. But man, this wasn't it. And for JONAH either. And I don't know what it could be, but I'm having trouble, going the route of, JONAH adapting to, and Lawlor adapting to the Japanese style. These are both guys who are well-versed in, the North American style. And JONAH's wrestled in Noah before. He did his stint in NXT, but he's been hitting the indies since. Been going hard. Tom Lawlor's fantastic. I don't know what I don't know what didn't click in this match. I don't know how these two guys weren't able to put something together more interesting than what we got. Because I didn't think it was it was fine for what it was. But there's really nothing that happened here. So, I don't want to go on. I'm reserving judgment still because I don't want to go completely off the deep end and say, both Lawlor and JONAH suck in the tournament. I don't. But when I'm on the verge of, because the tournament is short. There's 7 dudes per block. I don't see, it baffles me that guys can, that guys are like, yeah, this match can be passable. You've only got 7 dudes to fight in your block. This tournament is going to be over in a blink if you're not making a case for yourself with every match. You're not going to be able to have an 8-match string, a string of 8 sensational matches to sort of wash off whatever happened previously. So, I can't say that JONAH is looking great. His first match was with Toru Yano, and that stunk. Well, not stunk. It wasn't very good. I think Yano and Fale stunk. JONAH and it was a weird decision to have Yano go over JONAH in his first match in the tournament. And Lawlor now is 0-2, and I know for a fact he's not shining. This is not the filthy Tom Lawlor that we know and love. So I don't know when the trigger is going to get pulled here, but as it stands right now, both these guys are absolutely under delivering. Lawlor hits a running PK on the floor, tries another one, but JONAH pounces him. JONAH does strength moves really well, like he presses Lawlor over his head, dumps him over the guardrail. That's a good spot. Get a waist lock in the ring from JONAH? Oh, really? Leg kicks by Tom Lawlor, a scoop slam by JONAH, and Lawlor avoids the senton, lands a series of cravat knee strikes. And this is the kind of shit that you want to see Tom Lawlor do, but he's not doing it enough. Running forearms, JONAH lariats him down. Then you see there's another good moment here by Lawlor where JONAH throws him into the ropes. JONAH swings at him. Lawlor goes low, picks his leg, and just smoothly transitions into a half crab, which was great. But there's not enough of that. Lawlor drags JONAH off the second rope into a Uranagi, but JONAH hits a powerbomb and the big splash, the torpedo, for the win. I find torpedoes, right? They're like a missile, right? They're an underwater missile, so they go straight. They go and then it's like impact, right? So, but JONAH, what he calls a torpedo was a big splash, right? So it's not a torpedo. Like torpedoes don't go woo. I don't think it's a good name. If he wants to do like a nautical weapon gimmick for to name his finisher, the depth charge maybe, because that's what those do. You drop them in the water and then submarines run into them or boats, and this is the kind of shit I have to think of because this match was whatever. JONAH gets a win. Lawlor loses his second match. He's 0-2. I don't know, man. B block action. SANADA defeated the Great Okan, and I am shocked once again. Lots of grappling in this one to start, and I mean a lot of grappling in this one to show off Great-O-Khan's technique. SANADA tosses him to the floor after a long exchange, hits the pescado. A drop kick by SANADA followed up by a lariat from the Great-O-Khan. They get into a strike battle. SANADA is eating the Mongolian chops, much to Great-O-Khan's dismay. But the last chop sends SANADA down to the mat while accidentally low-blowing Great-O-Khan, his leg lifting up. And I guess this is a new thing now in the tournament in New Japan, because this is like the third time that, right? I remember Yujiro did it, Taichi did it, or maybe it was SANADA in his match with Taichi. But this is like the third time we see it. And I'm already annoyed at it. He falls back and accidentally as his legs lift because of the momentum of falling back, he accidentally low blows the other guy. We've seen literally, I'm pretty sure we've seen it 3 times in the tournament so far. I'm already done with it. SANADA with an O'Connor roll and a TKO goes for the moonsault, but Great-O-Khan lifts the knees. O'Khan locks in the sheep killer. SANADA flips out of it and into the skull end. Great-O-Khan then uses his injured orbital bone to eke out of that one. It's going to be a story for the SANADA's tournament here. The referee gets distracted and Great-O-Khan hits a straight right punch to SANADA. Great-O-Khan goes up to the second rope. Hits a moonsault as El Fantasma, who was very fun on commentary, by the way. As El Fantasma said, wasn't pretty, but it was effective. And yeah, it looked like Great-O-Khan doing a moonsault. If you picture Great-O-Khan performing a moonsault off the second turnbuckle, which is, from what I've been told, is even more difficult to do than off of the top rope, off the top turnbuckle, because you don't have the height to reach your full flip, the momentum of the full flip. So kudos to him for doing it. Not an easy thing to do. But SANADA hits a pop-up TKO in the moonsault for the win. A bit of a surprise here. Was not expecting it. Look, this again, like I said, solid match. Appreciate everything that's going on. I really enjoyed the grappling at first. Thought maybe it went a little long. SANADA's not the most charismatic, explosive guy in the ring. I thought he carried himself well here. Got some good babyface energy going. Great-O-Khan was fine. Again, good, solid pro wrestling work, but I'm not dragged into it. But there's no fault to this match. There's nothing wrong. It just lacked the next gear. And in the main event, Block C action took us home, where Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Zack Sabre Jr. Sabre goes for some early submissions, of course, and which Tanahashi is kind of able to reverse out of, because look, they have such a history of matches together, and I think that they legitimately like wrestling each other. I think Tanahashi doesn't have an answer for everything Zack Sabre Jr. does, but I think it makes sense that he's able to reverse out of some things at this point after all the times that these guys have fought each other. Zack Sabre Jr. works the arm of Tanahashi throughout this match, lands a dragon screw over the ropes, taking a page out of Tanahashi's own book there. Cranks the arm some more, stomps it. He drags Tanahashi back down and works the arm, going in and out of holds. Eventually they get back on their feet. They trade some strikes, a Cobra twist by Sabre. Tanahashi tries one of his own, but eventually he eventually gets a dragon screw leg whip on Sabre, who fought the whole way, though. It was good stuff. Somersault senton by Tanahashi. Sabre is working on the arm again. Tanahashi tries to fight back, but Sabre gets him into an arm bar. Tanahashi, after that, runs the ropes into a guillotine, which he reverses into a pair of twist and shouts, which was pretty fun. Zack Sabre Jr. tries the Zack driver, but Tanahashi reverses it into a Zack driver of his own. He hits a sling blade, goes for aces high, but Sabre rolls through it. We get some really exciting reversals that ends in an European clutch by Sabre, but Tanahashi kicks out at the very last possible moment. They go back and forth on the mat until Tanahashi gets the pin, despite Zack Sabre Jr.'s arm being clearly under the ropes. So there you go. Again, look, for me, this was the match of the night. But I'm not sitting here clamoring, you absolutely have to go watch this. No, not unless you're really into Hiroshi Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr. and you really don't want to miss a thing. You won't be bored. It's not a bad match, but it's not one that we're going to remember. It's not one that needs to be, earmarked for, your match of the year considerations. It's a match. It's a good, solid pro wrestling match. And not every one of them has to be match of the year, but this is, like I said, these two nights of the G1 were mid, and it's kind of weird that it's happening in the G1. But like I said, I don't want to rehash my earlier arguments. Is this the lull? Is this the lull of the G1? And if so, why are we having a lull in the G1? Because it doesn't make sense, considering that there's 28 guys in the tournament, considering that some dudes aren't wrestling for 11 days straight. This isn't the grueling tour that it usually is. And again, I'm not poo-pooing it. It's just I would have expected this type of tournament setup to generate more hard-hitting classics, exciting, edge of your seat kind of thing. I don't know if I would have, these are strong matches here, but I don't know if I would have given any 4 stars to, and if we were talking ratings here on night 8, of July 30, I don't know if any match here is a 4-star match. Close, maybe 3.5, 3.25. But I don't know. I'm not very good with star ratings and stuff. But the point is that I don't think these are any matches where you're like, this is a good one. It's memorable. It's gets you hyped for the G1. I don't know. So overall, if you're waiting on me to decide what to go watch, if you were to skip nights 7 and 8, I would completely understand. It's fine. I don't think there's anything critical that happened here. I do recommend Hirooki Goto versus Aaron Henare from night 7, July 27. I think that was a very strong match. Very good. I think it was a very good match, but we've had better matches in this tournament to this point. But it's, if I guess you could go watch that one, especially since, I'm putting over Aaron Henare hard recently because I think that he's been putting in the work harder than anyone else. Well, not anyone else, but he's up there. Like, for a guy who's here to lose matches, he's going out in a blaze of glory. I think he's been doing fantastic work for the spot that he's been put in, which, is something you can't say. You can't say the same for a couple of vets in this tournament. Are we talking standings now? If you're on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, you've seen the standings so far, but I'm going to run them down really quickly. So A block now has Kazuchika Okada and Bad Luck Fale. For fuck's sake. Tied for first. Now, but the thing here, though, is that Fale is 2-3, whereas Okada has a perfect record at 2-0. Fale has one loss. We're going to have to keep that in mind. Jeff Cobb, Lance Archer, JONAH, and Yano are all tied at for 2 points. Are all tied at 2. And if you're watching this right now, I'm putting Yano in third. You know, even though he has 2 points like everyone else, because he only has 1 win and has 2 losses, whereas Cobb, Lance Archer, and JONAH are all 1-1. Tom Lawlor's bringing up the rear at 0 points. He's 0-2 right now. Again, I think Okada is running through this block. I think he's defeating everyone. I don't think there's anyone right now in any match that has shown me that they could spoil Okada. No one. Not JONAH, not Lance Archer. Jeff Cobb's already lost to Okada. And we've only seen 2 matches out of him. He had a good match with Okada on night 1. Then he had, he did his goddamn best against Bad Luck Fale, where Cobb was meant to look like the underdog. Will he be able to lift him? Oh my God. And it's like, yes, because it's fucking Jeff Cobb. You've already booked this guy as a monster. I shouldn't be wondering if he will be able to power slam Bad Luck Fale. I still think Okada's running away with the block here. And, it's not too late for Tom Lawlor to get some wins in either, but I think he's going to be less of have less of an impact in this in the block than I thought he would. I think Lance Archer might be a little more of an impactful player. He's been protected so far, right? He was counted out of his match with, he won against Lawlor, and he was counted out of his loss with Fale. So, little protection here for the AEW guy. B block is led by Jay White and SANADA now, both tied at 4. Taichi, Tama Tonga, Chase Owens, and Tomohiro Ishii all have 2 points apiece. And Great Okan brings up the rear, 0 points. Ishii is probably right now the guy in the block who is, well, not probably. He is the guy in the block who is in the worst position. He is 1-2, whereas Taichi, Tama Tonga, and Chase Owens are all 1-0. Great Okan at 0-2 is also not great. But I could definitely see him mounting a comeback from this point on. Maybe being a spoiler for Jay White to a degree. Speaking of, Jay White is still has the perfect record at 2-0, so he's the Kazuchika Okada of his block right now. I'm sure if he heard me say that, he'd enjoy that. And SANADA right now, he is 2-1, so he has 1 match over. He has 3 matches under his belt right now, but he has 3 matches but 1 loss, so he's 2-1. Whereas White is still pristine and clean. Let's keep going here. C block. Who do we have at the top now? It's a 3-way tie. Zack Sabre Jr., Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Hirooki Goto, all of which are 2-1. Aaron Henare and Evil have 2 points apiece, and Kenta and Tetsuya Naito, donuts at the bottom of the pile, 0 points for them. I am still sticking to my prediction that Tetsuya Naito is mounting a comeback and is going to win the block. I still believe it. I still think that's what they're going to do. What they're going to do. Have Tanahashi beat. See, we have to again. just in case you didn't follow you didn't hear my reasoning in the last review. Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. are fighting each other on the final night, right? So as it stands right now, I think that's the match that's going to be detrimental. That's the one that's going to put either guy over. I was saying to myself, Zack Sabre Jr. will probably lose one match, come into the final evening of the block as the block leader. Naito coming in with the two losses that he has, goes into the match, defeats Zack Sabre Jr., ties him for points, but since he defeated Jr., he has the tiebreaker, so he moves on. Now, the interesting wrinkle here, and I think they added this in for speculatory purposes, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But right now, Tanahashi holds the win over probably the two favorites to win the block. He holds a win over Zack Sabre Jr. He holds a win over Naito. So maybe he will have, unless he starts losing matches, he might have some kind of importance leading into the final night of block action. So we'll see how things go moving on so far, but I'm telling you guys, don't let Aaron Henare's score right now dissuade you from how good of a block he's having right now. He's working. And the D block is all over the place again. Will Ospreay and Dave Finlay both at the top of the block right now for 4 points. Juice Robinson, Shingo Takagi, Yujiro, Takahashi, the Tokyo Beam, and El Fantasmo all at 2 points, with Yoshihashi with only 1 point. No points. He's at 0. But he's only had one match so far, and he's the only guy in Block D who's only wrestled once. Ospreay's wrestled twice. He has the perfect record so far, so his 4 points is essentially a 2-0 record, whereas Finlay is 2-1, having lost to Yujiro, but having defeated Juice and Shingo. At this point, and Shingo is 1-2. He has 2 points, but he's 1-2. I don't think Shingo is going to be that much of a factor, and I'm curious as to what's going to happen with Juice moving forward, because I figured Juice would also be a bigger factor. He still might be, because he's fighting Ospreay on the final night of block action, so he still might have something up his sleeve here. Phantasmo is 1-1, and I think he's the only one at 1-1 so far, right? Yeah. Yujiro is 1-2. Phantasmo is 1-1. Yoshihashi is 0-1. He's only had one match. Juice is 1-1. Shingo is 1-2. Oh, Juice is 1-1. All right. So there we go. So that's what we have so far. So, and maybe I hadn't been paying attention, but I clearly heard Kevin Kelly say today, and this sort of answers the question that's been going around on the finals. After the last night of block action, right? The winners fight each other in 2 semifinals to finally go to the finals. And it wasn't clear to me, at least to me, it wasn't clear whether the final block, whether it would be block A versus block B, or, in block C versus block D. But Kevin Kelly confirmed that it's the winner of block A versus block B, and the winner of block C versus the winner of block D, which makes me consider moving forward that we will probably get Kazuchika Okada. Look, we're going to get babyface heel dynamics here. And I think the final is going to be Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay. That was my prediction from the get-go, and I still think that's what we're getting. I think we're getting C-Block winner Tetsuya Naito versus Will Ospreay, and Ospreay moves forward. But now I'm not so sure that Jay White is going to win the block. Because why would you give away Okada White as the semifinals of the G1? You hang on to that match, right? So I think maybe a guy like Great-O-Khan comes from behind. I could also absolutely see them giving SANADA a little push. So Block B has gotten a little more interesting to me, wondering who's going to win, because as much as I love Jay White, I think Okada Jay White is a dome match. You do not give that away in the middle of the summer in semifinals of the G1, not even the finals of the G1, semifinals. So I don't think Jay's winning. I'd like to hear someone make a case for Okada not winning. That would be very interesting to me. Losing 2 matches and Jeff Cobb coming from behind. Then we get Jeff Cobb and Jay White. It feels like a weird combination. I feel like, sometimes New Japan, for these big matches, they like their babyface heel dynamics. I'm still convinced that the finals of the G1 are Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay. I'm not so sure about Jay White winning the block anymore. I would split it between SANADA and Great-O-Khan at this point. I wouldn't put it past Great-O-Khan having a come from behind series of wins here. We'll see. Well, let's see. Look, if we go and check out New Japan, check out the schedule, right? We'll just do this live right here since we're talking about it. And we go see the last night of block action, which will be, of course, on August 16, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because 17 is the block finals. The semifinals of the tournament, basically. This could somewhat give us an indication. See, Okada is wrestling Archer. JONAH and Bad Luck Fale. God, that's gonna stink. Ishii and SANADA. See, this might be a little indicator here. SANADA Ishii on the final night of action. That could definitely be an indicator. Great-O-Khan is not wrestling on the last night of block action. So I would not be surprised if they run SANADA Okada again here. Very, very interesting. Because Jay White is not wrestling on the last night either. So I don't think he's going to be a factor. Yeah, the more I'm thinking about this, looking at the final lineups here, when is Jay White's last tournament match? On the 14th? Tanahashi Kenta, Lawlor Cobb, Taichi Okan. No, not even on the 14th. Jay White's tournament ends on the 13th? Yeah, against Taichi. Interesting. And Great-O-Khan's tournament finishes on the 14th. I mean, look, like I said when we started the tournament, I'm sort of basing these thoughts off of, original or like not original, but the booking patterns for New Japan that we're used to in the 2-block setup with 10 guys per block, or whatever, 8, 10, depending on the year. This is all new territory here. So don't know what the booking scenarios might look like. We're going to get closer to them as things start to flesh out. This is very interesting. The more I think about it, the more I'm not convinced Jay White is going to be involved in the finals of the G1. Interesting to think of. But listen, in the meantime, before we get to the night 16, 17, and 18 of the G1, we have 2 more nights coming up. We've got, these are not the right notes, Warren. There we go. We got night 9 coming up tomorrow as the moment I'm recording this on July 30th. So tomorrow, July 31st, night 9, again, still in Nagoya. Block A action is going to be represented by Lance Archer versus Jeff Cobb. Block D is going to be Yoshihashi for his second match versus Juice Robinson. Block B action, Chase Owens is going to be taking on Jay White, which will be interesting for the Bullet Club dynamics, of course. Then we're getting another Block A match, Kazuchika Okada versus Bad Luck Fale. And Block C is going to be Tetsuya Naito versus Evil. So we're getting 5 block matches per night now, moving for the next couple of evenings of action, as opposed to the 4 that we've been subject to. August 2nd will be night 10. Therefore, Tuesday we're going to be in the Hamamatsu Arena in Hamamatsu. Block B action, Tomohiro Ishii versus Great Okan. We're going to have Toru Yano versus Tom Lawlor in Block A action. Oh my God. I just want Tom Lawlor to shine, man. Back with another Block B match, Tama Tonga versus SANADA. Block C action is going to be represented by Hiroki, Goto, and Kenta. And the main event, Block D, Will Ospreay versus Dave Finlay, who has Will Ospreay's belt. So will Ospreay finally get his belt back? Interesting. And, with the performances that Finlay has been putting on over the past couple of days, I'm much more excited about this match than originally. So that's what's coming down the pipe for the next couple of days. So I'll be back on August 2nd. And I'll be talking all of this over, keeping you updated, recapping what's going on, giving you my thoughts. So there you go. We're going to wrap this one up. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. We'll see each other again in a couple of days. In the meantime, I don't know, have fun. See you next time.